What's going on YouTube? Welcome to the Credit Plug channel. So for today's video, I wanted to put out some information on business lines of credit, business loans that pull from TransUnion. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this is because TransUnion is the least utilized of the three major credit reporting agencies. Experian is usually going to be the most utilized of the credit reporting agencies, followed by Equifax and then TransUnion, at least in my experience. So TransUnion is the least utilized, even more so on the business side, because there's no equivalent business reporting agency for TransUnion like you have Experian Business, you have Equifax Business. Now, the first one on the list we're going to go over is Fulton Bank. Now, I've done full videos on Fulton Bank. Fulton Bank's mostly on the East Coast as well as in the South. And again, anyone can become eligible through what's called a foreign entity registration. I'm not going to dive into all those details, but pretty much Fulton Bank is going to be pulling from TransUnion for their loan products. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Fulton Bank's credit cards are issued through Elon Financial Services, and so there may be different data points on the credit cards. But when we're talking about their real estate line of credit, their secured business line of credit, unsecured business line of credit, business term loans, vehicle financing on the business side, that's all going to be a TransUnion pool. Now, when it comes to the business line of credit, I applied for this a couple months ago, was able to get approved for $50,000. And so the other data points that they will require, they do request your most recent tax filing. Now, a couple months ago, I didn't have the 22 filed, so I was able to provide them with my 2021 business and personal tax returns. So they only request 1 year back. Now, a lot of institutions may require 2 years. They only require your most recent one. And if you have filed an extension for 2022, providing your 2021 is enough, right? And I believe the minimum credit score that you need is a 680 FICO 8 TransUnion. For some of you who might be familiar, especially on the real estate investing side, let's say you own a non-owner occupied property and you want to be able to tap into the equity. Now, most financial institutions like Truist, let's say you try to get a secure business line of credit using your, asset as collateral, they're not going to enable you to get a secure business line of credit if property is zoned residential. If it's zoned commercial, then you're able to get a secure business line of credit using that property as collateral. So for most people who, let's say you have Airbnbs, I don't know, maybe you own a single family house, townhouse, condo that's zoned residential, even if it's under your LLC, a lot of the major banks aren't going to allow you to pledge it as collateral. Now, Fulton Bank is one of the few that allow you to pledge residentially zoned real estate under your business as collateral for a line of credit, and they'll do up to 70% LTV loan to value. Now, another important data point about the Fulton Bank business line of credit is that it is a personal guarantee. So because of that, they also requested, at least for me, they requested my year-end W-2. So I did have to provide a W-2. And the reason why is because since it's a personal guarantee, they want to make sure if the business is unable to make payments on the business loan or line of credit, that you, the individual or the beneficial owner, is able to make the payments. So for those reasons, they also wanted to see my personal income as well. So I did have to provide a year-end W-2. Now, the next institution that pulls from TransUnion that I wanted to go over is BMO Harris. Now, BMO Harris is a game changer for a couple reasons. For those who aren't familiar, BMO Harris stands for the Bank of Montreal. It's the US-based subsidiary, which I believe is like a top 3 bank in Canada, like one of the 3 largest banks in Canada. Now, they're primarily based in the Midwest, but recently they've done a couple acquisitions. I believe they bought out the Bank of the West, and so they have coverage throughout several parts of the United States. Now, I'm based in Maryland, and there's absolutely no branches in Maryland, but I was still able to submit an application for the BMO Harris business line of credit. Now, they have dedicated business bankers that can process your application. So you don't necessarily have to do the foreign entity registration, so to speak. What distinguishes BMO Harris is that they will give you a line of credit up to $1 million. Now, here's how they pretty much figure out what to approve you for. They'll give you up to 30% of your gross revenue from the previous year in the form of a business line of credit. Now, this is a game changer because a lot of institutions usually will only give you 10%, some 15 to 20%, but it's rare to find 30% of your gross revenue in the form of a business line of credit. Now, their criteria, I believe, how they define small businesses are businesses doing less than $10 million a year. Also, they're going to request what's called a schedule of business debt. Now, the schedule of business debt pretty much lists out all of your current business debt obligations, right? So credit cards, loans, lines of credit. They pretty much give you a template. You fill in what the current limits and balances are. And the reason why they're requesting that is because they also use what's called a global debt service coverage ratio. Now, what is a global debt service coverage ratio? That's pretty much a combination of the business income and debt as well as the personal income and debt of the beneficial owners. So pretty much they're going to figure out, okay, how much personal debt do you have and how much business debt you have, what's your personal income and your business income. They calculate the global debt service coverage ratio. You guys could Google it, check it out. I'm not going to dive too deeply into it, but it is a measure of the debt to income of the beneficial owners and the business. And so they calculate that ratio and it has to fall within a certain threshold. So that's why they ask you for your schedule of business debt. And of course, they're going to know your personal debts from pulling your credit report, right? It's going to list all the, personal debt that you have reporting. Now, when I went through the process, they did ask for the last 2 years of personal and business tax returns. So it was a hard inquiry, a schedule of business debt, and 2 years of personal and business tax returns. But again, BMO Harris is a game changer because they'll give you up to 30% of your gross annual revenue in the form of a business line of credit, unsecured business line of credit. They actually do have a program or a couple special programs for minority businesses, female businesses, as well as veteran-owned businesses. So the next institution I wanted to go over was CQ of Maryland. Was able to get a $50,000 business line of credit, $20,000 business credit card. They basically want your last 2 personal and business taxes, and they will do a hard pull on TransUnion on the business side. So a lot of y'all know on the personal side for SCCU, they're Equifax all day. But on the business side, they actually use a third-party company, one of these mortgage servicing companies that are able to like pull credit. They're able to like figure out like your income and pull tax records and stuff like that. And so they use the third party. So the third party is pulling TransUnion. So that's a huge, difference. A lot of people, who've gone through SCCU know that they pull Equifax all day on the personal side, but on the business side, since they're not, SCCU's not actually pulling your credit, it's a third party company. Now they're pretty much looking for a 680 minimum, and I believe you do need to be in business for a minimum of 2 years in order to qualify. You also need to be registered in the state of Maryland, so you could always do what's called a foreign entity registration, and that will basically get you in the door with SCCU. Now, the last institution I wanted to go over that pulls TransUnion is called WesBanco. So WesBanco is a mid-sized bank, mostly East Coast and a little bit in the Northeast as well as in the South. Now, some caveats with WesBanco, right? So recently they went through a modernization of their website, and so there's different data points depending on how you apply. Now, if you go in branch to apply, they're going to be pulling your TransUnion FICO score. However, if you go on their website and apply, they're going to be pulling Experian because the two systems, for some reason, they don't talk to each other. They're not connected. And so for those who are, let's say, you're outside of their footprint and you decide to apply online, it's going to pull your Experian. But if you go in branch, they're going to pull your TransUnion. Now with WesBanco, they require a minimum of a 700 FICO score, whether that's Experian or TransUnion. And I believe if you apply online, they don't really request any documentation, right? So you can apply with no docs. So WesBanco is going to give you exactly 10% of what you report as your gross annual revenue from the previous year. So let's say, you did $500,000, you'll get a $50,000 line of credit, and that's pretty much how it works. Now, the thing I love about WesBanco, so for my business line of credit, I have a term of 66 months. So pretty much, let's say, I can use that line of credit, pay interest only, and then at the end of the 66 months, that's when I have to bring the balance all the way to zero. And if you don't bring your balance to zero, basically what happens is they convert whatever balance you have into an installment loan. So just to recap, four institutions that pull TransUnion on the business side for business lines of credit. You got WesBanco. If you apply in branch, if you apply online, it's Experian. You have CQ of Maryland. They use a third party that pulls TransUnion. You have Fulton Bank, and they're going to be pulling TransUnion, except for their business credit cards that are issued through Elon Financial Services. And then you also have BMO Harris. They're pulling TransUnion all day long. So hope this video was helpful. Until next time, take it easy, and we'll talk to you soon.